In the hollows of Appalachia, a man could be sent to federal prison for 5 years and fined $10,000 for doing what his great-grandfather did every autumn. The government called it a felony. The mountains called it survival. The revenue agents climbed those ridges for a century, chasing the still, but the deeper skills, the ones that kept whole families alive through brutal mountain winters, were never about liquor at all. They were about self-reliance so complete that no government and no company could touch it. Here is what they never tell you. The Moonshiner culture was never really about the whiskey. It was about a people who refused to be dependent, who turned a corn crop into something that wouldn't rot, who built an entire way of life in country too steep and too poor for anyone else to bother with. Number 14 on this list kept mountain children fed when the cash ran out completely. Number 7 was the reason an isolated family could survive a winter snowed in for months. These 20 skills weren't lost because the mountains gave up their secrets. They were lost because the young people left for the mills and the cities, and a way of life that took centuries to build went quiet in a single generation. Your mountain ancestors were the most self-sufficient people this country ever produced. Before we start, hit subscribe, because this knowledge is dying with the last of the old-timers. What you are about to learn kept the mountains alive for 100 years. Let us count down. Number 20. Corn as the foundation of everything. Up in the steep hollows, corn was the only crop that grew well on a mountainside, and your great-grandfather built his entire survival around it. It fed the family as cornbread and grits, fed the hogs and the chickens, and the surplus that would have rotted in a wet mountain autumn was transformed into something that kept for years and could be traded for cash. A bushel of corn was hard to carry down a mountain trail and worth little. Concentrated, it became wealth a man could carry in a jug. That was the whole economic logic of the mountains. Number 19. The mountain hog that raised itself. Your great-grandfather did not feed his hogs in a pen. He marked their ears and turned them loose into the oak and chestnut forest to fatten on the mast, the wild acorns and nuts that carpeted the mountain floor each fall. Come the cold of November, he hunted them down fat and ready, having spent almost nothing to raise them. The free-range mountain hog fed itself on the abundance of the forest, and a family that knew its hog range never wanted for meat or lard. Number 18. Sorghum molasses cooking. First pattern break. Sugar was expensive and store-bought, but sorghum cane grew in the mountain bottoms, and every fall the community gathered for the molasses making. Your great-grandfather pressed the cane with a mule-driven mill and boiled the green juice down for hours in a long flat pan, skimming it constantly until it thickened into dark, sweet sorghum syrup. That syrup was the family sweetener for the whole year, poured over biscuits, baked into cakes, and used to trade. The skill of knowing exactly when to pull it off the fire was everything. A minute too long, and it burned. Too soon, and it wouldn't keep. Number 17. Chestnuts before the blight. Before the chestnut blight wiped out the great forests in the early 20th century, the American chestnut was the heart of mountain survival, and your great-grandparents remembered when entire ridgelines turned brown with nuts each fall. They gathered chestnuts by the wagon load to feed the family and fatten the hogs, roasted them, ground them into flour, and stored them through winter. When the blight came and killed nearly every tree, it took a pillar of the mountain food supply with it, and the old people never stopped grieving those trees. Number 16. Springhouses built over cold water. With no electricity reaching the deep hollows, your great-grandmother kept the milk, butter, and cream cold in a small stone springhouse built right over a flowing mountain spring. The water ran year-round at the temperature of the deep earth, colder than most modern refrigerators, and it cost nothing and never failed. She set her crocks in the running channel, and the mountain itself kept her food from spoiling through the hottest summer. Number 15. Wild ginseng and root digging for cash. Second pattern break. When a mountain family needed real money, they went to the woods for sang, the wild ginseng that grew in the cool shaded coves, and brought a high price from buyers who shipped it across the ocean. Your great-grandfather knew where it grew, how to dig it without killing the patch, and how to dry the roots for sale. Alongside ginseng, he gathered golden seal, bloodroot, and yellowroot, a whole pharmacy of mountain plants that turned into the cash that bought the few things the family couldn't make. This was knowledge of the forest passed down with great care. Number 14. The mountain kitchen garden on a slope. Flat land was almost non-existent, so your great-grandmother gardened on slopes a city person wouldn't dare walk, terracing tiny plots and growing beans, squash, potatoes, and greens wherever the soil would hold. She planted by the signs and the moon, saved her own seed every year, and coaxed a remarkable amount of food from ground that looked impossible. Her garden, her canning, and her root storage carried the family through every winter, no matter how isolated the cabin. Number 13. Leather breeches and dried beans. Your great-grandmother strung green beans on thread with a needle and hung them from the cabin rafters to dry into what the mountains called leather breeches. Dried this way, the beans kept all winter without canning, and when soaked and cooked with a piece of fatback, they made a hearty winter meal. It was the simplest preservation imaginable, requiring nothing but a needle, thread, and the dry air of the cabin loft, and it fed mountain families through the cold for generations. Number 12. The smokehouse curing of mountain hams. After the November hog killing, your great-grandfather salt-cured the hams and shoulders and hung them in the smokehouse, where slow hickory smoke and mountain thyme turned them into the famous aged country hams that could hang for a year or more. The skill was in the salt, the temperature, and the patience. A properly cured mountain ham was a treasure, sliced thin and fried, the family's prized meat doled out carefully through the long months. Number 11. Fox and coon hunting for fur money. Third pattern break. The mountain night belonged to the hunters and their hounds, and your great-grandfather ran the ridges after raccoon, fox, and mink, selling the cured pelts for the cash that bought salt, ammunition, and shoes. He knew the animals' trails and dens, trained his dogs to the work, and could skin and stretch a hide, so it brought top dollar from the fur buyer. The fur trade put real money into hands that otherwise saw very little of it, and it demanded deep woodcraft to do well. Number 10. Herbal medicine from the mountain coves. The doctor was a hard day's ride away, often farther, so your great-grandmother was the family's physician, and she knew the mountain plants the way a pharmacist knows a shelf. She made cough syrup from wild cherry bark, calmed fevers with boneset, treated wounds with the resin of the balsam, and dosed the children with sassafras tea each spring. None of it was magic, and most of it had real medicine in it, knowledge handed down mother to daughter across generations who had no other healer. Number 9. Drying apples on the cabin roof. The mountain orchards gave heavily in good years, and your great-grandmother preserved the harvest by peeling, coring, and slicing the apples thin, then drying them in the sun on clean cloths spread across the cabin roof. Dried apples stored for a year in cloth sacks and became fried apple pies, stack cakes, and sweet winter eating. It cost nothing but labor and good weather, and the smell of apples drying in the mountain sun meant the family would have something sweet through the cold. Number 8. Reading the mountain weather and seasons. Your great-grandfather planned his whole year by signs the modern world has forgotten: the thickness of the squirrels' tails, the height of the hornets' nests, the woolly worm's stripe, the fog on the mountain in August. These signs told him when to plant, when to harvest, and how hard the coming winter would be. Whether or not every sign held true, the habit of close attention to the natural world kept the family ahead of the seasons in a place where being caught unprepared could be deadly. Number 7. Total isolation, self-sufficiency. This is the one that connects them all. A mountain family could be snowed in for 2 months, the trails impassable, the nearest neighbor miles away, and want for nothing because they grew, raised, gathered, hunted, and made everything they needed. Your great-grandparents owed nothing to any store because the store was a world away. That complete self-reliance, the food in the cellar, the meat in the smokehouse, the medicine in the cupboard, the cash crop in the jug, was the proudest achievement of mountain life, and it is exactly what we have lost. The forgetting came when the timber companies and the coal mines opened, when the roads finally pushed up the hollows, and the young people walked away to wage work and never came back to the old ways. A culture of total independence dissolved into dependence in barely a generation, and the skills went quiet in the empty cabins. Here is your challenge. Pick one, just one. String a batch of beans to dry. Learn one wild medicine plant that grows near you. Dry a tray of apple slices in your own sun. Tell me in the comments which one you'll try, and tell me if your family came down out of the mountains because somebody in your family tree knew every skill on this list. That knowledge did not die. It just went quiet. It is time to start listening again.